Uh, Actually, do you want us to wait any longer, Sam, or should we go ahead and start? Because right now it's right at 2.
Yep. No, well, actually, let's just start because everyone's busy, and
Okay,
I like to respect everyone's time.
sure. Okay, thank you. So this is Richard from Let's Go Learn, and I am going to go ahead and start. And today, what I want to cover is I'm going to do a little bit of overview because there's some questions that popped up in some of the emails about the Let's Go Learn system, but mainly I'm going to be talking about Edge 2.0, which is our new upgraded personalized learning tool. And so most of you have been using the assessments. Not all of you have been using the Edge tool, which is the linked instruction. And so also, just so you know, it is paid for. So if you're using the assessment or if you want to use the Edge, it's all covered right now. So any site could use it. And so hopefully, if you have other questions about that, you can always talk to some of your administrators. So let me go ahead and begin. And let's see, hopefully you see my screen. And now you should see the A and the I. So the first thing I just want to start off is reminding everyone that the assessment is we operate under this model, the assessment instruction model, and that means that as you assess students, you instruct, you use the data, and it's sort of a continuous cycle. Where our assessments really focus is under the diagnostic and formative area. Now, some of the questions have come up about you're just using our assessments for pre-post testing. And I know you have to do that, that's great, but don't forget, we are a diagnostic assessment. So the real power here is you can use the data to really personalize learning for your students. And so that's something I just want to remind everyone of. And plus, the other piece about this is because we're diagnostic, our assessments are able to create a personalized course for every student in math and reading, all right? And so that's really important. And just to remind you, standard assessments just look at single grades. Our assessment, DORA, follows a diagnostic model of assessment. So as students are tested across these multiple subskills, we find instructional points, regardless of the student's grade. So even if somebody is a 5th grader, or they're a 10th, or they're a 12th grade, we go up and down until we find instructional points. And this is really important because a lot of tests don't do that when they're following just a standard model. Now, the same thing, of course, is true in mathematics, and I would argue that most assessments in math really are very generalized. Our assessments are really, they break it apart, so we're trying to find specifically how is the student doing in addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, fractions. So there's lots of detail that goes into it, and as a result, it really drives a very nice personalized lesson with Edge, but it also could really help you when working one-on-one with a student or in a small group. Okay, so that's really what I wanted to focus on in terms of the background, just so make sure everyone understands. We're not a benchmark test. You could use the scores for measuring growth, because I know you have to do that legally, but we also are a diagnostic assessment, right? And I'm going to answer a couple other questions about, I know later on there's some questions about the scoring, and I'll talk about that in a second when I log into the system. Okay, so the next piece here is, let's go ahead and just remind everyone of the assessments. So DORA is our reading assessment, and then we have ADAM and DOMA. All right, so math is a little bit more complicated. ADAM is foundational math. It's going to span K through 7 and 8th, some of 8th. It depends on how you define certain math topics. So K to 7/8. Pre-algebra assessment, DOMA pre-algebra, covers 4 through 8th. And then we have Algebra 1. Okay, so you have to decide which assessment you're going to use. Now, all of these assessments, the math assessments, place students into Edge. Edge, we now have one Math Edge course, and regardless of the test you take, you can place students into a personalized math course based on their assessment data. Likewise, DORA will place students into ELA Edge. All right, and so that's important to realize that. Okay, let me go ahead. So the next piece right here is test durations. I did want to clarify this because this question has come up. DORA takes about 45 to 60 minutes to complete, unless, of course, you're very young. If you're a K1, it may be a lot less because you're not going to go as far on the test. Now, ADAM is our foundational math assessment, and that it really varies depending on the grade level. So K1 would take 15 minutes. All the way up to 6th and 7th grade level math would take an hour and a half. and sometimes it would take longer, right? Now, here's the real power of this assessment, though. All this data is we're finding instructional points, and I'll show you when we look at EDGE, you'll see how powerful it is, because if you have somebody who's older and they have foundational math skill gaps, this assessment will find it. And so the thing to remember, even though the test is longer up front, you could break it up. You don't have to give it in one sitting, but also by spending more time in diagnosing the issue, we can help remediate the student more efficiently. If you don't spend time up front, then you may have students working on topics for the next 10 to 15 hours of instruction, which is in the wrong area. So I would say it's always better to spend a little bit longer in your assessment in diagnosing the issue, and so that you get the right lessons, the students are doing the right lessons, okay? So the other thing, though, is for some of your students who come in, I know you don't always have a lot of time, don't forget pre-algebra assessment is a great assessment to give somebody if they're older. Let's say they're 8th grade or 9th grade or above, and you initially don't know where they're at. If you give somebody the pre-algebra assessment and they're algebra ready, the test will only take 15 minutes. If they're not algebra ready, it would take 45 minutes. And if you look at the assessment, you could see the data, and if it seems like they're sort of maybe 6th, 7th, 8th grade level, that would be a perfect test to use, and you could put them into instruction, into Math Edge. So only time you would go back down to Adam is when you look at the student, they took the test, and you see that they're very low in all their basic math skills. That's when you really start using Adam, all right? And we have some documents on this, like how do I choose which test to use, Adam or pre-algebra? And I'll post that on the home tab for you guys. I realize that's not there now, but that's probably a good one for you to use, because choosing the right assessment for math is very, very critical because it saves time. I know you guys are a lot of times in different difficult situations where students come in, you don't have a lot of time, maybe they're frustrated, they're maybe not the best test takers, and so you want to try to be efficient with that. And of course, if somebody's Algebra 1 level, meaning their foundational math is solid, that assessment takes 45 minutes to 60 minutes, okay? So hopefully this makes sense. A lot of the email questions we had were concerning which assessment do I use, how come some tests take longer. Again, hopefully I explained that, why you would want to use a test, because it's just, the more powerful the diagnostic, the better the prescription is going to be. Okay. So Edge 2.0. Edge 2.0 is a brand new product. We upgraded it from the older one. You take Dora, the reading assessment, and it places students into an ELA Edge course, and each student gets 60 lessons that's customized to them. So even if you have a 10th grader, if they need sight words or they need short vowel or long vowel, then they would get assigned those lessons. If the 10th grader doesn't need any decoding work, but they just need comprehension strategies work and vocabulary, then their course would just have those lessons. So it's very, very efficient. Every student gets their own customized course, and now the Edge, it used to be called Reading Edge, it now includes some grammar lessons and other English language arts lessons. So there's punctuation, capitalization, and so it's actually a little bit more broader as well. Now if we take a look at the math assessment, any math test, whether you take Adam, pre-algebra, or algebra, they all place students into Math Edge. And so now you don't have to worry about the complexity of which tab to choose. Before it was a little bit more confusing, and we made it all nice and consolidated. All right? So hopefully that makes sense. What I'm going to do now is really show it to you, because I think, one-level slides are great, but you want to actually see the system. Okay, so one of the other action items I do want to mention is that because we have this new system, you do need to, we are going to be transitioning away from the older version, all right? But I'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so right now I'm logged into an account, and I hopefully this is not, Michael's not here, I don't know who Michael is, but I just opened up a generic account because I wanted to show you the home tab. And I'm actually not going to show any of the data or anything like that. But when you first log into the system, all of you have this home tab, and you have this one page here that is unique to Oregon. So from here, we see this is a demo of Edge 2.0. I will post the video from today onto this page as well. We see an Edge 2.0 tip sheet, and this tip sheet is going to explain everything that I'm covering today as well. So I'll just click on this right now and just show you how it looks. And I open up this PDF file, and here it is, right? So it says, getting started with the Edge, how do you go into Edge 2.0 tab, how you enroll students. I'm going to cover this, but just so you know, here's a great tip sheet that covers everything I'm going to be talking about, as well as in the very end here, some important text and how you should position Edge to your students. Okay, so just be aware, all of this is there.
And Richard, if I may,
Sure.
if you're new to the program and if you need a login and password, feel free to contact Julie Clements here at ODE, and she'll vouch for you and get you on your way to get a login and password. And when I email out the link to the recording, I'll include her contact information in the email.
Great. And thanks, Sam. And then one other thing too is if some of your sites, you're now responsible for running site level data, you're going to want a principal level access to your site. And so if you let Julie know that you need principal level access, she will then in turn let our customer service know, and we will give you your account, we'll upgrade your account to have principal level access, and then you'll have access to more reports. Okay, and that'll be a whole nother session. I think actually right here it says show how to use a data portal. This video actually covers how to run site level reports. Okay. All right, so another couple things real quickly. When you do test, don't forget to always use your admin scripts, right? And here are the admin scripts. Especially in math, the math takes longer because you really have to proctor it. Because our assessment is adaptive, sometimes students are exposed to math that is very hard for them, and so they need to move on, right? So they need to just go ahead and make their best guess. And so that's why it's important always to read the script to students, or at least familiarize yourself so you can just do it verbatim in your own words. Anyway, so that's something just to be aware of. The test scripts are really important to look at. Okay, so let me go into another account. I'm going to go into one of my demo accounts. Excuse me. And so my first assumption here is that I've tested my students, and most of you have seen this page. You have your class right here, and then you come over to the assessment page. I'm going to go to the DORA page. I see that I have 2 students who have completed an assessment. At this point, the way you turn instruction on is you're going to go to the instruction tab, and you're going to select Edge 2.0. Okay? So I select Edge 2.0. Now, right now, your accounts have our old Edge up there as well. So actually, let me show that to you. Right now, you have all of these old products. These products, it used to be broken up into Emergent Reader, Reading Edge, Comp, and then Math, Pre-Algebra, Algebra. Now we have only one tab, right? So what you guys need to do now is transition your students over to the Edge 2.0 tab, because these products are older, and this is the newer tab with the newer access. Okay, so from here, I go to the Edge 2.0 tab. When a student has finished an assessment, I think I only had a couple students, Sammy, I could pretty much click on the enroll button. I roll my mouse over it. I could see some scores for DORA. I click on the button right here, and now I see exactly what lessons were assigned to this student. So if you look here, we see grade K, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the grade level of the different lessons. So specifically, if I click on K, I see that no lessons at kindergarten were turned on for the student. At grade 1, the student is to be turned on sight words, vocabulary, short vowel, right, and so on and so forth. At grade 2, we see some other ones, and then it pretty much stops because it's going to assign them 60 lessons. So what I would do is I would go ahead and click on Enroll Student here. Boom, I enrolled. And now when I come back over here to Sammy, I click on Edit. And now we see those 60 lessons in order, right? So this was a personalized course created for Sammy. If I want to, I say, well, you know what, I worked this past week really hard with Sammy, or maybe for a couple of weeks, and I don't think he needs any sight words anymore because we've nailed it down together. I could actually uncheck those if I wanted and turn off those lessons. Okay, and then I could just hit save. Now, as the student starts completing it, you'll start seeing a track record. Okay, last time played, minutes, minutes on task, score, right? Times played, minutes, and score. So this becomes your little dashboard. So let me go back over here, Edge 2.0. And so, like I said, this is your enrollment page. So initially, after you're done testing, you come over here, you're going to enroll the student one time. you enroll them in the course, and it looks like Sammy is also already enrolled in a math course. So let me just click on that. I can view it. And we see here, okay, so on 10/25, they played count, find 5, one time, 39 minutes, 100% score. Play this next one. So this gives us a little log. Now over here, we see that this particular one was played 3 times. 2 times they just jumped over to it and they jumped back. They didn't actually complete it. The 3rd time they played it for 3 minutes and got a 100% score. Okay. So again, it's actually quite simple. You know, they finish assessment, you come over here, you enroll. Once they're enrolled and the student logs in, the icon shows up. And if you guys have used Edge before, it's very similar. The difference is now everything's all in one tab, and we actually have customized courses for every single student, so it's actually better and there's more lessons. Now, the other option you have here is, just so you know, if you don't want Sammy to do it and you want to disable it for him, you can actually click on this button right here and say status course. Oops, click off. So now it's off, and so when Sammy logs in, he won't see the ELA Edge icon. Okay, so I can turn that back on. Now the other piece we have too is if you're trying to monitor usage, I can click on the usage button right here, the usage tab, and now it shows me I only have one student who has activities in this demo account of mine, and that's Sammy, 0.93 hours, 6 attempts, 4 lessons completed, 4 unique lessons completed, 96 score, and we see the progress. 4 lessons out of 65 on the math course. All right, so again, this just gives you a quick snapshot. Later on, you could even put in a date range, like if you wanted to say, I want to see for my group of students, how much have they done last week? So I can actually put last 7 days, filter it, and since this is my demo account, last 7 days, Sammy had no activity. Okay. Now, a couple other pieces here as well. Let me go into another account. Okay, so this is a different demo account of mine. It has a few more students. Okay, so let's say, for instance, if I wanted to take a look at this student here, again, I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at a student who's already been enrolled. I'm going to edit their tab. Again, this gets back to, I reiterated this, if I wanted to turn certain lessons off, I can. I can see their track record right here. From here, I can also click back on grade view. So what's interesting about grade view is, again, this shows what lessons they were given at what grade level. So this student, I think the student's a 5th grader or 6th grader, they were actually given no lessons at kindergarten level. Grade 1, they were given 1, 2, 3 lessons or 4 lessons. At grade 2 instructional level, we've got 3 lessons. Grade 3, right? You see more. Grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, and there's the last ones here. So again, you see this is the power of having a diagnostic assessment that goes so low, because if you were to give the student just a pre-algebra assessment, he probably wouldn't receive lessons at the grade 1, 2, and 3 level, because the pre-algebra assessment really is only going down as low as 4th grade and up. So this is where, when you find a student and you realize they really fundamentally have basic math skills deficits, then you want to give them ADAM, because ADAM spans K through 7/8. Okay, so that's really important to notice that. The other piece about this too is just the way it works is when students do lessons, let's say measuring length, it's queued up in order. So the student gets measuring length, multiple measures, additional properties. They have to get a 75% or higher in this lesson in order to move on. If they get less than 75%, they have to still click on it and do that same lesson over. Now the other piece is we encourage them to go back and try to get everything up to a gold or a silver level. So let's log in under talent. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Let me just look this up here real quickly, and I'm going to look up Talon's login and password. I'm logging in as a student, and we see right here we've got queued up for both Math Edge and English Language Arts Edge. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with my Math Edge. I'll click on it. And now we see, okay, I'm not sure if you hear that audio, but it's playing real quickly, just giving me some instructions. So this student is working on this lesson next. I can click on it and I go to that lesson, but these other lessons here are flashing because previously when Talon did measuring length and additional properties, he did not have 95% or higher. So that means at some point he needs to go back and do a review. And when they do a review, they have the opportunity to get their lesson up to gold level, right? So there's actually also a bronze level. Bronze is 75, silver is 90, and gold is 95. And this is Talon's personalized course right here. We see all the different lessons that were selected specifically for him. There's also something called a section challenge. So every so often, when they hit really like the end of a grade level, they get a section challenge which has them do a little bit of everything at that grade level. And these are sort of fun. Well, they can be fun. You have to get your scores up to between 100 and 200 points. And so this is something you could also use internally. If anytime someone has a section challenge, you sort of could maybe, some schools have been recording that, some teachers, and they say, hey, so-and-so had 150 on his section challenge. And somebody else will say, hey, I got a 175. And it becomes a little bit of a fun rewards thing that you could post. The other piece, too, is when you're done, you complete the course, you get a certificate. And so the great thing is, regardless of the student's ability, every student competes for a certificate, which is 60 courses. So even if I'm a student who struggles in math, if I can finish 60 lessons, I get a gold certificate. If somebody else is higher in math and he or she completes 60 lessons, then that person becomes gets a certificate as well. Okay. All right. So that, in many ways, that's really all there is to it. It's actually fairly simple. For those of you who used Edge before, you'll notice this is a lot simpler. Right before we had it really covering many pages. And we didn't have, it wasn't quite as organized as well. We didn't have as many lessons, but now this has been rebuilt from the ground up. Of course, there's other pieces as well. You can look at history and all this other stuff. You can look at past courses, but that's probably not as important to you. But again, if you go back to the main tab here, and we have the tip sheet, right? This tip sheet, again, covers everything I just had. It's like a 4-page document. Actually, let me explain one other piece about it. The last page, this is also really important. With our lessons, the Edge lessons actually use animations, they use songs and graphics. And so you really want to position this properly to your students and say, hey, look, we know that research says when you use songs, when you use animations, when you use melodies, it helps students learn difficult topics. And so that's one thing you want to point out, because you don't want people to start to say, hey, I feel like this is too childish. Because in a way, it's very, very effective, and it's a lot more engaging than listening to something like Khan Academy, where it can be very boring. And so, especially for difficult topics. All right, so I usually like explaining that. And there are a few other things about Edge behaviors that's good for you to read. So knowing about the scores, that repeat the lesson if you get 75% or higher. The other piece is students do need to finish their lessons completely. If they quit out of a lesson before finishing it, they actually have to do the lesson over. Okay, so that's another thing. So read through this page and make sure you understand these pieces, because that'll give you a much better experience when you're using Edge with your students. So let's see here. So one of the questions is, do they need to go in order or can they jump around? So actually they do need to go in order, because in theory, it is building on itself. Like, so a student does measuring length, they do subtracting 2 digits. Maybe later on they have another subtraction. So they do have to go in order. Wherever the green icon is, the green unlocked lock, that's what they have to do next. But you may want to set this up. Every so often they would go back and do a review. And so maybe if I've done a whole bunch of lessons, and maybe after 2 weeks, I then go back and I do anything that's bronze or silver. Now they can't do review within 2 days. So if I did subtracting 2 digits and I only got a 75%, I can't click on that immediately and do it over. Because the idea is we want them to have a 2-day pause, so that way when they do a review, it's not just because they memorize how to do it right away, it's because it's a little bit more long-term memory. So that's one other catch, and I think we mentioned that in the instructions right down here too. Um, okay, so I'm not sure how many people have actually seen Edge. So why don't we open it up? If anyone has questions, you can go ahead and unmute your line and ask me. Otherwise, I also, in a few minutes, I want to show you guys how Edge looks because some of you may have never seen Edge before, how the lessons look. So let's take some questions.
Yep, I just unmuted everybody.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
I noticed a couple pages back there was something that said Khan Academy. Does this go anywhere else out in the internet world?
So I think we have, Sam, don't we have Khan turned off right now?
I believe so. I thought it was self-contained.
Yeah, so one of the things we do have is you could use the math assessment could actually create a custom lesson plan for students in Khan. And the problem is that it was creating open links where you can just jump over to Khan Academy, and I think that was an issue for security purposes, so we actually don't allow you guys to have Khan Academy. We are redoing Khan this school year, and when we redo it, it's going to be grabbing the videos and putting them into our system. So at that point, I think it'd probably be safer for you guys, and then we will turn that back on.
Awesome, great. Thank you for the clarification.
Sure, sure. Yeah, Khan is nice because that allows you a way, like if you just forgot how to do area of a triangle, you could just click, the student can click in there and go to triangles, you know, and click on the lesson that pertains to them, and then they can watch it really quickly. And the assessment will actually queue everyone up exactly at the levels they need. So it's a pretty efficient tool. But unfortunately, like I said, we have to do some adjustments before we open it up for Oregon. Okay. Any other questions?
Question.
Sure.
We are wondering how long the pause will work on the lesson because our kids may be in the middle of a lesson when they have a 15-minute break.
Sure. So here's the cutoff. It's 60 minutes. If they take over 60 minutes to complete a lesson, their session's going to time out and it won't record.
Okay.
So if they have a 15-minute break, there should be no problem. Most students are going to finish a lesson within, 15 minutes. Really, lessons aren't that long. Occasionally, end of section lesson might take longer because they're a little bit more difficult. They're doing a bunch of stuff, or there might be some lessons that are tough for some students. I've seen some students maybe take 30 minutes, but really it doesn't take much longer than 30. And so, but we do it. There's a session timeout at 60.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Also wondering if at some point in time you can show us the grammar additions that have been added.
Sure. I could actually show you. Let me show you some of the lesson lists, and then we can see if we can find a lesson actually. So, but let's go ahead. If anyone else has any other questions too. Okay, so any other questions for anyone? Okay, so one of the questions is does their websites, all URLs are blocked? Does the Edge use an additional resource beyond LGL? Yes, it does. So that's a good question. So Edge actually calls another URL from one of our partners, and actually, if we come to our website, let me just bring up a new window. So maybe what I'll do is I'll try to post this somewhere as well. But I think if we have, let's see here, right here. If you go to Let's Go, just real quickly, if you go to Let's Go Learn Support and you type in whitelist, so here, this document right here will give you all of the URLs to use. Actually, I'm sorry, this is the email address. Okay, there's another one as well. But I'll tell you what, I'll send that to Sam. I'll also post it on your guys' home tab because I know security is an issue. So I'll post the list of IP addresses and URLs and domains you need to use for our website in order to allow Edge. So that was a good question. All right, there's another one?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Once all of the students or one of your students goes through those 60 lessons, can they go through another set of 60 lessons, or how does that work?
Yes, absolutely. So what's going to happen is once students are done, what happens is you're going to see that they finished their course. It's going to say completed. At that point, what you would probably do is give them a new test, and then you would basically repeat the process. You would complete a new DORA, and then you'd go on there and say enroll, and you would see a new list of lessons, and you would enroll them. And so they could keep going. Now it's going to, obviously they'll max out, right? At a certain point, reading is really a certain level, and math only goes up through 7th, 8th grade.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hearing music in the background.
Hopefully that's not me, right? No. I noticed a couple times on my Mac that my iTunes will kick in automatically. It's sort of weird, but that's not me.
I'm going to mute everybody again. If you need to speak, you can unmute yourself.
Let's see.
Okay, so Richard, you should be unmuted now.
Oh, okay, thanks. So I think someone wanted to see some of the grammar lessons. And so let's take a look at, here's a grammar review. So, so I'm going to jump into, let's see here. Three, 14. All right, sorry. Let me just go ahead. And I'm going to take off my headset so you guys can hear my audio. So hopefully you can hear this okay. Let's try one of these.
It's time to review all the grammar you have learned. Build up this tower by reviewing grammar. Select the abstract noun. Good one! Select the correct noun. Amazing! Select the best coordinating conjunction. Incorrect. To combine these sentences, use but. We went shopping, but the store was closed.
Okay, so just to sort of reiterate, as you notice, all the lessons follow this format of do a explicit instruction. This is sort of a review lesson, so it's a little different. And then you start going into the game, and you have to get points. Right? So I got two right, I got one wrong. I'm at 66% accuracy. It corrects you if you get something wrong. This is a 3rd grade level grammar lesson. So obviously they vary. The interface will vary. It gets a little bit more mature as the level goes up. But anyway, just so you understand, this is sort of how it looks. All right. Other questions? Did people want to see another lesson?
Can you mute the sound to those lessons?
Oh, not through our interface. The only way you can mute the sound would be if you mean like just the music or all the audio?
The audio.
Well, you could mute the audio on your computer.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Quit out of that one.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
So if we have students who would have difficulty reading those sentences, is there an option to have the text read aloud?
So in general, if somebody is struggling in decoding, Dora is going to figure that out, and probably the lessons they're going to receive initially are going to be decoding lessons, right? So only once their decoding lessons are high enough would they be given anything that requires reading. Does that make sense?
It does somewhat. How about in the math?
Yeah, math, it's probably not, but it depends though. I would suspect if somebody has a hard time, well, the only thing is I know you're right, Adam does provide reading for them. You know, there's audio support when our assessment goes. So it depends on the lessons. You know, I think some of the lessons they read stuff out loud, and some of them will have a little audio speaker. But it's hard to say. I don't know if all of them would have that. I'd have to look at that. But I do know, generally speaking, when we have a lot of EL students who use our system, and generally speaking, their math isn't always they're not at the high enough level where it becomes an issue. But if it is, you know, they seem to be able to do it okay. And like I said, I apologize. I'll have to look into that a little bit more and find out like what percentage of lessons have audio support. I know some of them do, but I can't say that for certain that they all do. Now, the other thing is, yeah, if students end up getting stuck, I mean, you always have the ability to go in there and turn off a lesson. I mean, not that you want to, right? But I mean, the idea is it could be a certain topic or something that's very hard and they can't get past it. That's when you could go in there and turn the lesson off, and maybe you need to work one-on-one with the student to cover that topic.
Right. It's just that typically students with disabilities may or may not be actually reading at a level commensurate with the skill in math or their grammar skills or other things. They just simply don't have the decoding.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, and that's it's a tough situation to accommodate every single use case. Oops, let me log in here. Yeah, so like I said, I'll look into that a little bit more and see if I could, you know, find out if there's some kind of formula for that. I don't know if other people have been using Edge in the past. If you guys have any experience with this as well, you know, definitely feel free to chime in as well, because I know you guys have a particular student body, and some of you other sites might have encountered this already. Any other questions or feedback? Okay. If there's no other questions, I think this pretty much sort of concludes the basics of Edge. Now, remember, if you do have students in now, the idea is you want to transition away from the old Edge lessons, right? So let me go back into that one account. So if you have the old Math Edge or the Pre-Algebra Edge or any of these, oops, I got logged out. You want to stop using those old courses. Those old courses are you know, they don't have access to all the new lessons. You want to definitely use Edge 2.0. We kept them up there because sometimes you have students who are already in a course and you wanted them to finish the course, right? So we don't want to just pull them out. But the idea is you should go to Edge 2.0 and then enroll your students using the new tab. All right, well, thank you so much again. And then, as I pointed out, on your home tab, you'll have a lot of resources. I'm gonna post that whitelist. I have the tip sheet already there. We're gonna post this video, and you have a lot of other resources up there too. So definitely feel free to go there. Sam? Okay.
What you might have said this, and I might have just missed it.
Sure.
We have a student right in the middle of their 60 lessons in the old system, and they're going to be changing over soon. What do you suggest? And can we just re-enroll them automatically, or do they have to take the assessment again?
When did they last take their assessment?
Oh, it would have been, say, 2 months ago, maybe 3.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things we could do. I guess on one level, you could just re-enroll them. Right now, if you go up to Edge 2.0, you can go there and you could enroll them. But what you would end up having to do is probably uncheck the lessons that they've already done.
Okay, so we'd start them over again.
Yeah, it would. Although, the only thing I'd say is it's a little different because the new Edge alignment is a little bit more detailed because there's more courses, right? So in some ways, there's more lessons available. Was this for Math Edge?
Either one.
Oh, okay. So there are, and before, we didn't have as many lessons available. We probably added like 25 to 30% more lessons. And so, yeah, so there's quite a bit. So on that level, it's actually, it's better. But like I said, how long do you expect a student to take before they complete that course? How long does it normally take for them to go through 60?
Long time.
Okay. Yeah, I would recommend then going in there, and then re-enrolling them in the new one and just probably unchecking some of the early lessons that they've already done.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a little bit of a tedious process. So.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, you're welcome.
So, Richard, there's a question about whether the Let's Go Learn assessments are correlated to the GED.
Yeah, so there is a correlate. There are correlations, but I don't think we've ever done a formal correlation between the GED curriculum map to EDGE lessons. But I know that definitely there's overlap. Now, in terms of that question, is it because you just need to know from a curriculum standpoint whether it's covering it, or is it because you need to have some kind of report? Maybe I think that was Phil. If you want to elaborate on that, we could try to answer that. Okay, so he's saying their student is interested in taking the GED, and they want to know, whether it's gonna help with that. I mean, it absolutely will, in the sense that we're covering reading and English language arts, but obviously that's not the only thing you need to cover on your GED. So I would think that it would help. But like I said, unfortunately, I don't have any formal crossover on that, something that talks about exactly what standards we're meeting. I'm going to write this down, and if I can find something on that, then I'll let you know, and I'll forward it to Sam. And I suspect we might have somebody out there with some kind of correlation like that, because I know other schools are using it in that capacity. Okay. Okay, no problem. So I'll go ahead. I'll make sure if I find that information that someone else actually typed in the chat window too, I'll get that to you. All right, my list is growing here.
Are there any other questions for Richard or myself?
All right. Looks like no one else, Sam. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, for participating. Thank you, Richard, for putting this on.
Yeah, no problem.
And once I have everything from Richard, I'll email everybody the attachments and the YouTube link and so forth. So keep an eye out for the email. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. I'm stopping the recording right now.